If you want some tips and tricks on how to gain some hunting permission, stay tuned. Well, I know it's been a little while, everybody, but I've got a fairly short one for you today, and it's going to be a step-by-step with some tips and tricks on how to gain hunting permission. That's something that I've done a lot of over the years, fairly successfully, so I'd like to pass on some of those things to you and kind of how I do things. I certainly don't know everything, and some of this is opinion-based, certainly, but it's just the way that I do it and have had success in the past, so I hope that you can find some use out of this as well. Before I get too deep into the video, I wanted to shout out Orock. I've got the shirt on today. Definitely gave me a little bit of motivation to get one of these videos out, but loving their merchandise. They got some really cool things I just picked up. They got some really cool car scents, hangable, air fresheners, pretty cool. They got all kinds of cool decals on the website. Check them out. They got this cool turkey feather that I picked up, this trout that I'm actually going to give to some people. Very cool stuff on there, but use code WHITEROCK for 15% off at shop.orockoutfitters.com. Definitely check them out. The first thing that you have to do is identify property. You really need to narrow things down, and it needs to be at least a geographic area, a smaller geographic area, or a specific property. Now, with all these apps, the mapping apps such as onX, HuntStand, you name it, there's so many out there now that you can find landowner names, addresses, all kinds of contact information on these mapping apps right at your fingertips. Definitely identify points of interest. Now, some other ways that you might do that are just simply by driving around. It's early August here in Vermont, and not a lot of deer around here. I took a ride the other night and only saw 2 single does, but normally, especially you people out in the Midwest and some other areas, you can drive around in the summertime and see some bucks out in the field feeding, or maybe it's just a good looking property that you want to gain access to as well, but just a drive around can identify some different points of interest for you as well. Now, the third way that I usually identify properties is through friends, family, coworkers, just having conversations with those people, and maybe some of them are landowners. I hope you've already had that conversation if that's the case, but everybody that you know knows somebody that owns land, and if you can get an introduction through a friend or a family member, you have a lot higher likelihood of gaining access that way as well. And one other piece that I would mention with the identifying properties is not necessarily looking only at big properties. I think a lot of people struggle because they identify the 200 plus acre parcels, and I don't think you need to do that. I would prefer, instead of 100 acre piece, I would much rather have 5 20 acre parcels that I can hunt, giving me 5 different chances at different deer on all the different properties, whether it's different winds, you have different ways to get into there, whatever the case may be. I would much have 5 different chances, or if you jump a buck out of that 100 acre piece or blow it out, pressure it too much, whatever the case is, you have different options if you get some smaller pieces. So I would recommend getting a variety. It's nice to have those bigger chunks as well, but if you can get some smaller pieces to mix in there as well, it just makes the season a lot smoother. I feel like being able to move around and try some different things throughout the year, because one of the worst things in hunting is getting stagnant, and if you're just hunting the same one property all year long, things can get pretty stagnant very fast. So just a little recommendation there. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about is the types of approaches. Now, when you're actually going to ask your permission, how are you going to do that? And the first way, my favorite way, is in person. I do sales, that's my full-time job, and my job is literally to go into businesses and get them to do business with me. That's not an easy thing to do, but what I do is break it down. It actually is very similar. Like, it parallels the steps that I do in getting landowner permission to hunt is very similar to getting a business to say yes to me. So that's kind of where this stems from. And that in-person approach is always the most successful. If you can't do that for whatever reason, you're going to be trying to get access for an out-of-state hunt and you can't get out there, you certainly could send a letter. That's another great way. And, things in that letter, I would certainly put, kind of a biography. What are your goals? Who are you? What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? That type of thing. What's the time frame of when you're going to be out there? A bunch of different things you could add into there. I'm currently becoming a hunter safety instructor right now. I would probably put that in there so they know that I'm probably more than likely somebody who's going to be safe. I've completed hunter safety education. I've completed bow hunter education. Anything like that, showing who you are as far as character goes, certainly can help your cause. Now, the third piece with that would be the phone. I don't prefer phone. I think it's a little bit intrusive if you can even get phone numbers. It's not my favorite way. I have called a few people, but that's more often, I've called a couple places to try to get shed hunting access, whether it be country clubs and places that don't normally allow hunting. I'll pick up the phone in that scenario to try to at least talk to somebody before I just show up there. Especially like during business hours, it's kind of an awkward conversation to have with people. So I like to call and just let people know what I'm doing, or maybe just to get a name. Who should I talk to in this regard? So just something to keep in mind. Now, another thing with that letter on your approach, I would probably have a permission slip. Okay, every state, most states, I believe, I can't say every state, but most states probably have some form of a landowner use permission slip or a landowner permission, and it's they can sign it, you can sign it, you can put your driver's license, your license plate number, what type of vehicle, color, all of the above. You can put all kinds of things on there and you both sign it and keep half. They keep half, you keep half, and then that kind of has a paper trail for you, which I would certainly recommend doing just in case. It's always nice. And honestly, some states at certain situations, like here during youth weekend, you have to have written permission to be on a property no matter what. Now, the third piece is appearance. And this is opinion based for sure, a little bit judgmental maybe, but not really, because some of this conversation stems from landowners that I talk to frequently and have told me what their gripes are in the past. And that can go from the type of vehicle you drive, what you're wearing when you go there, maybe not having a big dip in your lip because that turns some people off. Like, I don't care what you're doing, just try to be aware that whatever their perception is, that's reality. You're the same person, whether you're covered in tattoos, you drive whatever vehicle, it doesn't matter. You're the same person. However, perception is reality. So try to dress appropriately, look respectable. And just go there and, again, be respectful to the landowner, and they're probably going to be respectful back to you. Not going during hunting season or wearing hunting clothes, especially if it's out of season. Don't show up there in your hunting clothes. I know that's turned off a lot of different landowners that I've talked to in the past, so be mindful of that, not wearing your hunting clothes to their door and knocking on the door. That's a great segue into the next piece, which is timing. Do not go during hunting season, and in my opinion, that just shows a little bit of laziness. Especially, I hear this all the time. Hey, there's a deer out in the field, can I go shoot it? Most landowners don't like that. I don't really know one who's ever been like, yeah, absolutely, just go out and shoot it. You saw it from the road, you're just going to walk out and shoot it. That does not typically go well, and it sets a bad precedent for you. It's not a great first interaction with the landowner, in my opinion. Now, the other piece with timing is it might be the time of year, like I mentioned, but time of day. That's important as well. If you're calling them, don't call them at 10 p.m. Don't call them at 6 a.m. Be mindful of that. Same thing, if you're going there in person, don't try to go late. Don't try to go, if you think it might be dinner time or maybe they're not awake yet. Just be mindful of those types of things as well. And then the last piece with timing is the not during hunting season that I just mentioned, for multiple reasons. And one of the other big reasons is other hunters. Okay, we should be respectful to each other. And I can tell you, as somebody who oversees a couple properties with multiple hunters on them, that myself and them definitely never appreciate somebody coming a day before the season or during the season and walking all over the place, hanging tree stands, hanging cameras in the middle of the season. That's just not what we're going for. And it's really frustrating for somebody who has put in the time in the off season, maybe scouted in the summer, hung trail cameras during the summertime into the fall. So just being respectful to the landowner and maybe the other hunters that may be on there. And maybe the landowner is a hunter that's on there and they definitely don't want you impeding them at that time of year. Had you gone there in the summertime, maybe the answer would have been different. So not a good first impression again in that regard. The next piece goes without saying, okay? You just need to ask. And I feel like I have to say this because of the conversations I've had in my past. And we all know somebody. There's always somebody who is this person. They're the must be nice people. Must be nice to drive that car. Must be nice to hunt that property. Must be nice to have this, have that, be able to do this, do that. Those types of people are people who aren't going to go ask permission usually. And I get it all the time. And they ask, well, how are you getting this permission? Because I ask. And it sounds simple, and that's because it is. I truly just ask. I ask everybody. If I share common interests with anybody, if I meet anybody and it comes up in conversation, I will simply just ask them, do you have anybody who hunts the property? Have you had anybody who hunts the property in the past? Do you hunt yourself? That small talk is going to lead into a conversation and open the door for you. Or not, but worst case scenario, you ask and you know. A segue from that would be, here's a pro tip. If it's a no, there's a few things you should do. You definitely want to be respectful, because to me, usually it's not a no forever. It's a no, not right now. And I want to be respectful of their decision, because ultimately it's their property, right? They're paying the taxes on it, their liability on it, and you could potentially take the liability piece away with that permission slip, but it's still their worry potentially of somebody going out and recreating on their property and, fear of injury or accident or whatever the case may be. Landowners have valid fears regarding that, and you need to kind of respect that as well. The other piece with that is ask them to keep your contact information. That's something that I commonly do. Here, keep my number, please. Here's my card. I have business cards. Not everybody has that, but I'll hand a business card out that has my name, my address, my phone number, email. So if they want to get in touch with me any way, they can. But if you have a letter, have those things with you, and you can give them one of those just to have your contact info, or write that down on a piece of paper and hand that to them. And then the third piece to that is ask permission if you can stop back another time. Things change throughout the year, and it's not always a no, I promise you, but land ownership changes. People sell their houses, whatever the case may be. Things change, and it might not be a drastic change. It might be, hey, you know what? We're going to give you an opportunity to turkey hunt here, or hey, we're going to give you an opportunity to shed hunt, which I found the shed on one of the properties I had permission on actually hanging trail cameras a couple weeks ago, so that's kind of cool. But forgot to mention that as well. But you can always start small with that. It doesn't have to be asking for the hunting permission right away. It might be, hey, would it be okay to hang a trail camera just to see? I am a trail cam enthusiast, and I actually would get enjoyment just seeing what might be there. So I might even ask, hey, if I can't hunt here this year, but would it be okay if I hang some trail cameras just to see what's around the property? I've had people tell me yes, and then I shared those pictures with them, and they thought it was the coolest thing. I have one property that I have permission on. They have never seen a bear, a coyote, bobcats, and they've had this property for 50 years, and I don't think they look out their windows, must be, but I had, in the first year that I hung trail cameras there, pictures of all of those things, and I sent them to them not very far from their house, and they thought it was the coolest thing, and they just absolutely loved that. So little things like that, or ask the permission to, hey, could I just go in and look for deer antlers? That's a passion of mine. You know, that's kind of low intrusion, and it's just a good introduction to show them that you're going to be respectful of their property. And it might be an in to hunt in the future. So you don't have to go big or go home necessarily in these steps. You certainly can start small and work your way up as well. Now, the last piece to this is keeping permission. I don't have to say that you want to keep permission. You're certainly not trying to probably go in there and hunt for 1 day, 1 week, or even 1 season, at least not myself, unless you're after a particular deer that you saw and never want to go back and you got it and don't want to go back. I guess that could happen, but I'm normally looking to have a relationship with these landowners for years to come. Now, I'm going to try to keep my permission by being respectful to them and honoring their wishes. And, you know, clear communication is key in that. And part of that is, you know, making sure that they know what you're trying to accomplish, you know what they want you to do or what not to do, more importantly, on their property and things of that nature. And then another way that I would do it is just stopping in from time to time. I just like to stop in and see these people. At the very least, I try to make an effort to get there at least once a year to ask if I can have permission for this hunting season. Definitely want to do that. But often, you know, if you see a branch down in their yard or a tree fell in their yard, stop and ask them if they need help cleaning that up. That will go a long ways as well. I have a good buddy who he used to cut firewood when we were younger. He cut firewood. Him and his father would go there a few times each summer, and they would cut firewood and stack it for the landowner for hunting permission on a great property. That's awesome. You know, something that I've done is similar. I had a property that I went and walked, and they had trees down everywhere. And I asked them if they wanted help cleaning that up because it looked like they had started it. And they appreciated that so much. They didn't actually take me up on it. I told them I have no problem doing that, but they said, no, we really, really appreciate that. We'll let you know in the future if we need help with anything. That's awesome, but for now, we'll take care of that, which was nice as well. Now, another piece is posting property. I've had multiple landowners that I've stopped, and this is mind-boggling to me, but I've had multiple people over the years who said, you are the first person to stop and ask permission to hunt here. They know that people have been hunting their property, but they said, you're the first person to ever stop and have a conversation with us. And they like that. And I can think of 2 properties off the top of my head who both said, we would like you to kind of oversee the property in terms of hunting, and we don't necessarily want to shut it down to all hunters. And that was partially my conversation of them is, you know, it's kind of a good sized property. There's room for a couple people here. Would you like me to, you know, have a couple people that I kind of give access to? And the answer was yes. But I help them post the property so that they know, they just want to know who's there, not necessarily when they're there, but who is hunting the property, and that somebody is kind of watching out when they're not around. It's nice that somebody is watching over things a little bit there. So that can help for sure as well. And then the third piece of keeping the permission is potentially offering a gift or just bringing a gift, you know, around whether it's Christmas time or after hunting season. You know, bring them a pack of venison, bring them a thing of maple syrup. Here in Vermont, you know, I guess that's all we do is maple syrup. You know, when I go out of state to hunt, I've had so many people say that. And that same buddy who did firewood, actually, he brings maple syrup when he travels to get hunting permission. He brings little things of maple syrup to hand to landowners to try to get permission. Just those little things can make a big difference in showing that you're thinking about them and what their needs and wants are potentially. So, you know, I went to West Virginia this past fall. Angel and I did. When we got home, I said, you know, it would be really nice to thank those people. We shot a pile of deer down there in just 5 days, you know, with the 3 of us down there. I said, we really should do a gift basket. And it was right around Christmas time. So we put together a little basket with some goodies, some Vermont made stuff, and sent it down to them for Christmas time with a thank you note. So I expect this fall, they're probably going to remember that. So when we go back to West Virginia this fall, I assume when we knock on the door, they're probably going to say, more power to you. We appreciated that gift last year. And who knows, maybe they'll ask for venison or whatever. Probably not, but it's just nice to be able to do a kind gesture to people when they're kind of taking a risk letting you on their property. So just keep that in mind, that landowners are not obligated to give permission. They've paid for this. It's something that they're putting themselves at risk potentially for liability and that kind of thing. And it's a big deal to a lot of people, especially people who are not hunters. They don't necessarily know. There might be a myth around hunting or something that they think is true but really isn't. It doesn't matter if they think it's true. Like I said, perception is reality. So be the person who can change that perception and put a positive light onto hunting. And it's better for all of us in that situation, especially for yourself. So that's all I got for you today. I really hope that you found some use into this. It's one reason why I started the channel, was to be able to share some of my knowledge. I'm not full of knowledge. I guess I am full of knowledge, but I'm not the most accomplished hunter, but I definitely try to be respectful and pass on different things, which is why I'm trying to become a hunter safety instructor now. I'm just trying to give back to the hunting community, and I hope that this helps new hunters, or there's a lot of people that I know that are older hunters who don't have access to properties, and maybe this will help you as well, and I sure hope it does. So I appreciate you if you've made it this far, and we'll catch you on the next one.